Hi guys, welcome to today's video. I'm the Hooded Lid, but today we're going to talk about perfume instead of makeup. I am a perfume kind of a junkie, I have to admit. And when I first started this channel, I did a lot of perfume videos. If that's interesting to you, check my playlists and go to my homepage, check the playlist, and you'll see my videos on perfume. My last video on perfume was a year ago when Tom Ford released Rose Prick. And I wasn't a huge fan. I got so many thumbs down on that video. I decided, you know what? I'm kind of done with the perfume, because when I do perfume videos, I have notes, 4 pages of notes. I spend some time. It's not like bought something, put it on my face, tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you what I think, but I really try to give you some information so you can learn about perfume, so you can become a better buyer. I've noticed recently that several people in the makeup YouTube world are starting to talk about perfume. And I've even seen one person say, you know, I love this. It's so pretty. And that's all. And that's great if you think something's pretty. But if I'm watching and I'm thinking about maybe buying something, it's so pretty doesn't do it for me. And I have a feeling it doesn't do it for a lot of people. So I'm just going to try to share with you what I know, educate you a little bit about perfume so you can make better choices of what works for you. So a little about me, and I think I'm going to do a series, so I'll tell you a little bit on each video, otherwise the video will be extraordinarily long since I do have 4 pages of notes. But I used to go to a place called Scent Bar a couple of times a week, and I'd spend at least an hour, sometimes hours there, talking perfume, sampling things. When other people came in, they were invariably, if you're going to this perfume store, you are very interested in perfume, if not knowledgeable, and you get a much better variety at stores like this. So they have 2 stores in Los Angeles, 1 in New York, but they have a website that's called Lucky Scent. And I would venture to guess most big cities probably have a dedicated perfume store. When you go there, you can really hopefully learn, because there's a good chance that the person who's working there, the manager, the salespeople, know a lot about perfume too. So I went to Lucky Scent, hadn't been there in a year, and saw Steve, the manager. And Steve has known me for many years, since I used to be there all the time. He kind of knows what I like, although I am pretty open-minded. I think there's some things definitely no, but he knows what I like. And he brought to my attention a brand called Rogue Perfumery. He knows I kind of like the vintage scents. Things I get on eBay that are 30 years old are so much more beautiful than what is produced now. So, for instance, Le Bleu. It is from Guerlain. If you can find the right vintage that hasn't turned too much and compare it to what they're making now, it was so much better then, because the materials have changed quite a bit. But we'll get into that in a hot minute. One of the things he made a sample of for me is Chypre Siam, because I love Chypre. Chypres can be hard. I have to put some on before I continue. And that's it. That's okay, you guys. I'm going to be buying a bottle. All right, let's talk about Chypres briefly. If you know a little bit, and you know that Mitsuko is a very famous Chypre, and you don't like Mitsuko, so therefore Chypres are not for you, hold the phone. Throw that whole idea away. I personally hate Mitsuko. I think it's loud, it's screechy, it's overwhelming, it takes over a room. It's just, bleh. Don't like it. But there's so much more to Chypre than Mitsuko. I'm going to read to you a little bit about the Chypre history. My glasses broke, so they're not even on my face, and they don't make this anymore. I've been wearing this particular one. I mean, I've had many of them for years. I'm so bummed, because I think it suits my face. So, sorry that it's crooked. One of the first Chypres widely released was Coty's in 1917, developed by Francois Coty. Guerlain had its own in 1840, but Coty's iteration is regarded as the classic, the one from which all Chypres stemmed. The top notes are bergamot, African orange flower, Amalfi, lemon, and orange. The middle notes are jasmine, iris, rose, carnation, ylang ylang, and lilac. The base notes are oak moss, patchouli, incense, civet, musk, and styrex. There's nothing to be afraid of here. Look at all those florals. Look at the jasmine. Look at the African orange flower, the lemon and orange from Amalfi. Nothing scary. Since then, the structure of a chypre has been deemed to open with bergamot, which is a citrus. A lot of fragrances open with citrus. Citrus is not long-lasting in a perfume. If you buy something that is lemon-centric, chances are it's not going to smell too lemony after just a couple of hours. But I digress. The middle notes are centered on Cistus labdanum, which is also known as rock rose. And the base notes always include oak moss. Sometimes there's civet, sometimes there's musk, but oak moss is key to a chypre. From there, you could add fruits. Mitsuko, they add peach, it stinks. You could do florals. Hermes Calichet is a good example, or a specific flower like a rose, and then you have a rose chypre. Givenchy 3 is considered a green chypre, and Bandit from Roger Piguet is a leather chypre, and a woody aromatic chypre that you probably know if you're around my age is Aromatics Elixir, which I have to say I do love, even though I don't like patchouli. There's a lot of patchouli in there. So they're not as foreign as you think they might be, and I'm going to name a couple of others at the end of the video that are more recent than these that you might be able to get your hands on that I love. Chypres are generally considered something that is beautiful in the fall, and I don't disagree, but some chypres, especially green chypres, are beautiful in the spring, and that's kind of my happy place. I like the green chypres. Fast forward 100 years, almost exactly, maybe 90 years. IFRA, which is the International Fragrance Association, deemed that you can no longer have oak moss in perfume, thereby killing the chypre genre altogether. Now, it's not banned 100%. I think you can have something like 0.01% of oak moss, but that is just not enough for a chypre. This organization is based in the EU, even though they say it's the International Fragrance Association. They don't deem what is or is not available in the United States, and Rogue Perfumery knows that. This is Manuel Cross. He is actually a chef by trade, and he's been kind of obsessed with perfumes for years and years and years. His first foray into perfume was going to a Whole Foods or a health food store and buying essential oils and mixing them together. And ever since then, he says, he's been obsessed. And it took him some time to decide what he was going to do, to understand structure, and to finally come out with a line, which he did. I'm not sure when. I think in the last 5 years. The perfume I'm going to talk about today is the Chypre Siam, which came out in 2017. And his line is inspired by vintage perfumes. Don't let that freak you out, because he puts a modern spin on the classics. So here's something I found on the interwebs. I don't know where it was sourced from, but it was either an interview with him or it was on their website at one time, but it's not anymore. I don't know why I took these off since I'm about to read to you. This is, quote, "A still life moment in the tropical eastern forests captured in a traditional Chypre structure. Chypre Siam is a vintage-style Chypre fragrance, complete with nitro musk and a huge dose of oak moss." That's right, it's real oak moss. It's not a synthetic oak moss. It's not, let's throw some patchouli in there and call it an oak moss. Oak moss. Just my heart. The opening notes are kaffir lime and basil. Jasmine and ylang ylang sweep across the forest floor and rest upon a warm base of oak moss, sandalwood, spices, benzoin, and civet. Civet is a secretion from the anal glands of a certain kind of cat, not a domestic cat. A lot of people have problems with this, but it adds a lot of interest and an animalic nature to the perfume. I feel bad even talking about this, but if you're into perfume, civet is important. The idea for this perfume came to me after sampling Coty's original Chypre back in 2012. I was already a fan of the genre, but Coty's original was the epitome. I could smell the framework of so many of my favorite fragrances that were slowly disappearing from production. I was in my garden picking a kaffir lime for a curry my wife and I were preparing for dinner, and the bright fragrance instantly reminded me of the Chypre de Coty from days prior. I smelled the leaves again and realized that I was also catching whiffs of the jasmine blossoms on the other side of the yard. That was the moment. I thought how novel it would be to recreate not the original Chypre, but rather the experience of the original using Southeast Asian materials, namely the lime, holy basil, lemongrass, jasmine, ylang, etc., that have been mainstays of the perfumer's palette. Chypre Siam took 5 years to complete. I've created a beautiful jasmine base that utilizes an even lovelier jasmine absolute, which helps meld the civet notes seamlessly into the benzoin base. What you get at the end is a Chypre experience more so than just a list of the notes. I wanted this fragrance to briefly transport one back 90 years. Enjoy, a note from the brand. I didn't find this on their website. I looked, but you know how websites are. You go through one door and you see something, you go through another door, you see something else. All right, so now we know what the notes are. We know what the structure is. I wanted to read to you what Scent Bar said because it is lovely. But let me first tell you a little bit about this. It's gorgeous. Ta-da! Of course, you have the opening that is the citrus, but it's not a lemony citrus going with lime instead, which I think has a lot more interest than lemon. I actually really like a lime. The jasmine is absolutely in there, but it's weaving its way through. You would not think this is a jasmine scent. And the indoles are in the jasmine. So indoles, I-N-D-O-L-E-S, you should look up. Maybe I'll talk about it in another video. I have talked about it about previous videos, but indoles are what make white florals so insanely gorgeous. Many, 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 many perfume houses, when they use white florals, they strip out the indoles and it just smells sweet. Indoles gives it some depth. Read about that chemical. The jasmine gives it breadth. So I think of a citrus as a narrow fragrance, where a white floral, if the indoles are in there especially, has a wideness, a breadth to it. But overall, this has a sparkle. So sparkle can mean many things, right? To me, this is the sparkle I'm thinking of, a babbling brook in a shady forest. But the sun is coming through, and it's not 100% shaded because it's near a river. It's about to let off into the river. And the sun is coming through and reflecting off the stones and off that water. That kind of sparkle. It has, you know, the nature of it. I noticed Michelle Wong did a review where she was talking colors, and I actually, if you look at my stuff from the past, I talk about colors too because, yes, scents bring color to mind. Of course, there's a greenness to this, but there's also a slight lilac-y color that comes to my mind. The oak moss, of course, is the smell of a forest after it's rained, and there's a little moistness there, but it doesn't have a damp smell to it. And oak moss is something that really belongs in the base. In and of itself, it's probably actually, I've never smelt it by itself, but it's probably not very appealing. It works, it sings when it's in a perfume. It brings everything else to life, and that is what I love about this. Absolutely, for me, a spring scent. That jasmine really gets to me. Now, let me read you a little bit of what you will find on Scent Bar or Lucky Scents website. Chypre Siam is a joyful middle finger to IFRA. I would show it to you, but I think I would get in trouble. Unrepentantly teeming with enough oakmoss to make an EU official faint. This is a fragrance that lays lie to the notion that they just don't make them like they used to. With Chypre Siam, Manuel Cross proves once and for all that it's not only possible to make an authentic Chypre in this day and age, but it's possible to do it so well that it sounds like a battle cry. But if all Cross were to do were to mix oakmoss, bergamot, and labdanum resin together, it would be dull and derivative. Instead, Chypre Siam has been designed with an irreverent Southeast Asian take on the classic Chypre, with the tart kaffir lime top note replacing the traditional bergamot. The Thai holy basil to underline the minty bitterness that is the oakmoss underpinning. Its raunchy, civet-inflected leather accord lends a lascivious purr that feels like labdanum ramped up beyond its normal range. And yet, despite the heavy-sounding notes, Chypre Siam retains a fresh, translucent greenness all the way through. Translucent is a word I should have put in my description. Even the jasmine here smells more like violets in a woodland than sultry white flowers. I disagree with that assessment, and scent is very personal. What I perceive with my nose could be different than what someone else perceives. I get that jasmine, I get the indoles, I don't get violets, but when I was thinking about that lavender color, yes, maybe there is kind of a violet life to it. That's why I was thinking of a lavender. A warm, powdery trail lingers after the fireworks of the kaffir lime, oakmoss, and leather die down. The Siamese benzoin, a sly nod to the Southeast Asian inspiration for Chypre Siam. Finally, a Chypre that feels, smells, and actually is authentic. They should have added in the here and now. So for me, this is something, yes, you could wear in the fall. Yes, you could wear in the spring. It is lovely, and it is unlike, although in the same family, of two of my other very favorite Chypres that are more modern. Before I talk about the more modern ones, I want to talk about a couple, if you're my age, that you might be familiar with. One of them was the original Halston, not the crap they're making now. And I actually had used Halston when I was in my early 20s, I think, maybe even a teenager. And I think I threw away my bottle. I'm the kind of person, I keep things, and then all of a sudden I purge everything. And I purged a ton of perfume before I suddenly got back into perfume again and really regretted it, because I had some discontinued things, some classics. It is what it is. I went online, I went to eBay, I checked the labeling, what is it supposed to say on it, to make sure that it is the earlier vintage and not what they're making now, and I got some. Now, Halston opens with aldehydes. Aldehydes is that fuzzy little thing when you lift a glass of champagne to your nose and you get that. That's what aldehydes are in perfume, and Chanel's number 5 is famous for being an aldehyde bomb. So aldehydes, when they get older, smell like celery. They're a little bad. Nonetheless, the perfume is still intact. I just have to spray it on and give it 15 minutes for that icky smell to go away. And I'm right in the middle of the middle notes of Halston, which is a beautiful Chypre, and you can probably still find some decent bottles on eBay if you are hankering for that and you used to wear it and you forgot about it. Another one is from Ralph Lauren, and it is called Safari. And I still remember the first time I smelled that on someone I worked with. We were in a big conference room and she walked in and I was like, whoa, I need to find out what that is. I did, I bought it, I loved it. I kept my bottles and I bought some more bottles, and those are beautiful Chypres that are more ideal for fall winter for me. Now, things that have come out more recently, but are hard to get, unfortunately, I'm going to mention them to you anyway. Roja Dove did something called, it's Russian, Diagolive, who is a Russian dancer. It came out in 2010, It was produced by Roja Dove for the Victoria and Albert Museum, some kind of anniversary, only 1,000 bottles. Now, when this happened, I was a member of Makeup Alley, and they used to have this thing where you could swap. I would put down a list of things I was willing to swap and a list of things that I was looking for. And whenever the hankering hit me, I'd say, yeah, I really want to try such and such. I'd do a search. I'd find somebody who had it, looked at what they wanted. If I had something, we'd email, I'll trade you 2.5 mil of this for that. Or if it was something I really wanted, 10 mil. This was something I really wanted, and I lucked into someone who I guess didn't love it that much, and I ended up getting 20 mil. I still don't use it that much because I know I'll never be able to get it again. And then a couple of years ago, I found that they did finally re-release it, this time in pure perfume, for $1,200 a bottle. Yay. I can't remember where I found it. It was on the Wilshire corridor. I know it wasn't Barney's, and I remember going downstairs. So I think it was Neiman Marcus. So Neiman Marcus in Beverly Hills has it. I don't know if all the Neiman Marcus have. If it's something that's interesting to you, the man that I spoke to, I guess he was impressed that I knew the perfume, and I was impressed with the perfume, and I wanted the perfume. He actually made me a sample. So you might be able to get a sample made for you. I mean, when it's this expensive, iffy. But I came home and I compared it to my EDP, is I think the original iteration. And I have to say I'm really happy with my EDP. I don't need the perfume, thank God. And another one is by Parfum de Nicolai, which is Patricia de Nicolai's perfume house, and it is called Le Temps d'une Fête. It came out in 2007, and it has notes of galbanum, a note I think I've spoken about before, which can be done so beautifully. Again, in and of itself, a little annoying with other perfumes. If done well, insanely beautiful. If not done well, screechy. Opanax, I always pronounce that wrong. Hyacinth, Narcissus, Sandalwood, and Oak Moss. The Hyacinth and Narcissus, for me, are what makes this spring. I love this one. So with this one, the Siam, which I do feel it's beginning, the body's opening up and it's getting a little bit wider right now. I think I can do it in spring, but in fall, mwah. But these two definitely are spring. Now, the Parfum de Nicolai, unfortunately, is no longer out for the masses. But on their website, they say no perfume ever dies. If we have something that we are no longer in production, let us know, we'll make it for you. And the price was not absurd. It wasn't even twice. It might have even been the same as usual perfumes. Now, this was several years ago when I went to the site and looked it up, because I do have a bottle, but it's not going to last forever. And, you know, I'm not using it because I'm afraid I won't be able to replace it. I did email them and they didn't respond. But it does say to call them, to call their store in Paris. They do have a website where you can get all that kind of information. This line is really beautiful, and she is the granddaughter, I believe, of Pierre Cardin. I believe it was Cardin. Perfume is in her bones, in her body, and she has a very lovely aesthetic. Some very, very nice perfumes. My two favorite are the Le Temps d'une Fête and Tonka Vanilla. This is something that I wear in the winter, so it's out. Generally, I do not keep my perfumes out. I keep them in a cupboard I have here. So the doors, half of the doors are glass, and then the lower doors are wood. My perfumes are down there so they're not exposed to light. Oh my God, I love this. It's tonka, it's vanilla, it's incense, and yet there is a green note in here that kind of cuts through it all, so it doesn't end up syrupy. Because think of it, tonka, vanilla, incense could be syrupy. Normally I would actually put this on today because we are kind of having cloudy, fallish weather. And you guys, that is it. That's a little primer on Chypre. And camera just stopped, and I'm about to end, so it's good timing. But I think the next video I'm going to do is about sandalwood, because when I was at Scent Bar, I got a couple of other samples, and I thought, oh, this smells like sandalwood. Oh, this smells like, I think I just, you know, I zoned out and ended up with a bunch of sandalwood scents. And so instead of a genre, looking at a note for the next time. Let me know if you're familiar with Chypres, if there's ever been a Chypre that you loved, if Chypre's totally new to you and you have never heard of it before, and what your thoughts are in this video. And that, my friends, is it for today. I hope it was helpful to you, and I hope you check out Rogue Perfumery. I did go to his website. Even the packaging looks kind of familiar to the Coty packaging, which is so interesting. And the website has that 20 deco kind of rounded lines going on. And he has, I think, about 7 perfumes. I think well worth checking out. And you can always get samples. You have to pay for them. They're not free, but you can go to Lucky Scent's website and buy some samples if any of those sound interesting to you. Now, that's it for today's video. Thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you might have learned something, and I hope you might have enjoyed yourself and maybe got you interested in trying out something completely different, and I hope you come back again. Until we meet again, Lucy's right here like, lady, get done with this camera stuff. Until we meet again, be safe, be smart, and I'm wishing you good health.